When I'm working with global clients on working cross-border, one of the frequent challenges that I come across is around the problems of recruiting internationally. And today I'm going to discuss this topic with a good friend of mine, Alex Cooper. So Alex, could you tell us a few things about yourself before we start?
Sure, Keith. I'm originally French. I've lived and worked in Japan, always worked internationally, and set up Cooper Edwards 4 years ago. We recruit at senior level, mostly board appointments and senior management teams for UK organizations who want to expand their footprint overseas, or for European organizations who are expanding in the UK, for instance.
So I think that in a few words, the challenge of recruiting internationally is that when you're working in an overseas market, unless you've got massive amounts of experience there, you just don't know what good looks like in that market. And the problem is, the danger is that you end up recruiting somebody who just is like you, rather than recruiting for somebody who's good fit in that particular market. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there is a global war for talent. You know, I think it's a cliche. We've always said for a few years there is a war for talent in the UK, but it's the same globally, and it's even more so. There are more challenges, obviously. When you recruit overseas, experience tells us that it's really, really crucial to work with a local partner who understand the local culture. It's not just the business culture, it's the legal compliance, it's the contract laws. A lot of our partners have HR knowledge and know the market intimately. It is really important, if you want to identify the right talent, to use a partner on the ground who understand what they're doing. For instance, when we recruited for a large FMCG manufacturer in the UK, we recruited for their regulatory affairs team in India. We couldn't have done it ourselves from here. It was really essential to use a local partner who understood the culture and who could get us the right talent to fit in the organization for the longer term.
So that's a really interesting point, Alex. But I suppose a supplementary point on that would be, how do you select a good local partner? How do you know what good looks like in terms of the local partner you work with?
And that's where the difficulty starts, really. Experience tells us that it's not only crucial to find a partner who has the local knowledge. Clearly, that's the whole point of using them. They will understand the culture of the local candidates, but equally somebody who has worked internationally a lot and who understands your hiring client's culture. Really crucial, whether the client is in the West or in China or in Japan. You really need to be able to find someone who will have an understanding of both the local and the hiring culture.
Another challenge that I've come across is that very often my client, whichever country they're in, have a very positive and strong brand in their domestic market. And they just seem to assume that their brand will be as well known in an overseas market, and therefore that their brand will be a magnet in terms of being able to recruit good quality talent. Whereas quite often their brand is completely unknown in a foreign country. Do you find there's a disconnect sometimes at that point as well?
Massively, yes. And that happens a lot, especially for the huge brands. The guys who, for instance, in the UK or wherever they come from, think that in this day and age with social media, everybody knows about their brands. Absolutely not the case. Brands are regarded completely differently in all corners of the world. For instance, I remember recruiting a country director in Japan for a UK manufacturer. They had an enormous brand in the UK. Obviously, they wanted a country director to launch in Japan. So clearly they were not known at all. So that was the first hurdle. They needed to understand really that their brand was not known at all. The other massive thing for them was the culture. They had a very specific culture in a way that it was employee-owned. It was an employee-owned organization, which was a huge USP for them in the UK. It attracted the best possible talent. But in Japan, where you still have a bit of lifetime employment, where people are not so keen to move around, there was a massive clash really. So using a very, very strong local partner really helped us get the right person and sell the opportunity, sell the unknown brand, and sell the very, very unique culture.
One of the biggest challenges I find around the impact that cultural differences can have is that it slows everything down. Right across the business, it slows things down. Is it a challenge if the hiring process is slowed down when you're recruiting in international markets?
Definitely, definitely. And I think in a way it's quite understandable. If you see from the client's perspective, they are making a massive decision, especially if they're launching in a new country. It is an enormous decision, so they tend to add more steps to the process. Some clients already have long hiring processes in the UK or in their own market, but overseas they will add yet more processes, more Zoom interviews with more VPs. You can lose candidates very easily this way. Now, what we do a lot of is stay very close to candidates throughout the process, in any hiring process whatsoever, even more so overseas. I find that I always like to build a rapport with the candidates. So I will always spend a lot of time on the phone, even if it's only as a touch base or catch up call. And over time, you get closer to people and you get to gauge their engagement and their real commitment to moving. Very important, I think, post-pandemic as well. A lot of people will have stuck their nose out the window, had cold feet, heard about restructure internally, therefore started looking outside for new opportunities. It's really important for people like us to gauge their commitment and their engagement. And you can do that over time a lot more accurately, but you really need to be committed yourself to get the right commitment from your candidates.
So therefore, Alex, if they add extra steps to the recruitment process and that's a challenge, do you really think that people who want to hire in a new market should be speaking to people locally just to make sure that the process is correct before they commence the recruitment process?
Absolutely, absolutely. At the end of the day, what you want is a positive candidate experience. It is really essential that you sell your brand properly and you come across the right way. You come across as somebody who is culturally aware. Therefore, yes, absolutely essential to talk to local recruiters to understand what their process is. It might be vastly different. It might be a couple of rounds only. It might be 5 different steps. It might be presentations. It might not. Really important to have your robust hiring strategy, hiring process that really reflects the local culture. It's essential.
So it seems obvious that getting the recruitment processes right when you're recruiting internationally, but what would you say the major consequences of not recruiting the right person in an overseas market?
I think the obvious one really would be that it does cost money, it costs time to recruit in the first place. If you get this wrong, you need to fix it. It's even more costly, clearly. But I think more importantly, you can cascade the effect down the organization. If you recruit the wrong person at the top, you will have an issue cascading the wrong type of culture through your organization overseas. It is really critical to get every single hire right.
Thanks. Well, that's been really interesting, Alex. And I know there are lots of other issues around the challenges of international recruitment, and maybe we can look at some of those at a later date. Thanks very much.
Sure. Thank you very much, Keith.